The doctor didn't sugarcoat it. If we don't operate within 2 weeks, you'll lose mobility in your leg, permanently. I stared at the x-ray glowing on the screen, my future reduced to bone and shadow. One accident at work, one cracked ladder rung, and suddenly my life was measured in hospital bills and deadlines. The surgery wasn't optional. It was $5,000. Not millions, not some wild number, just enough to save my leg and my independence. So I did what any daughter would do. I went to my parents. We sat in their spotless living room, the one with brand new leather couches and nautical decorations, anchors, ropes, little wooden boats everywhere. Dad leaned back, arms crossed, like I was pitching a bad business idea. "We just bought a boat," he said flatly. "Money's tight." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. Mom didn't even look at me. She stirred her coffee slowly and said, "A limp will teach you responsibility. You've always taken the easy way." The words hit harder than the diagnosis. Before I could respond, my sister snorted from the other couch. "You'll manage," she said, scrolling her phone. "People live with worse." I felt small, disposable, like my pain was an inconvenience. Then the front door opened. My brother Mark walked in late, grease still under his nails, work boots worn thin. He listened quietly as Dad repeated the story, simplifying my future like it was a budgeting problem. Mark didn't argue. He disappeared into the garage and came back with an envelope. Inside was $800 in cash. "I sold all my tools," he said. "It's not much, but it's everything I have." I burst into tears, not because it was enough, but because someone finally cared. Dad looked annoyed. Mom looked embarrassed. My sister rolled her eyes. Mark squeezed my shoulder and whispered, "We'll figure something out." I believed him. The surgery happened anyway. Emergency charity care, payment plans, months of pain. I learned to walk again slowly, stubbornly, one step at a time. Mark worked extra shifts, rebuilding his tool collection piece by piece. My parents never asked how recovery was going. They were too busy naming the boat. I thought the worst part was over. I was wrong. Because years later, when my phone rang late one night and Mark's name flashed on the screen, I heard fear in his voice for the first time. And that's when I realized my family had taught me exactly who they were, and soon they were about to learn who I had become. 5 years can change everything. I went back to school during rehab, online classes while learning to walk again. I took loans, grants, night jobs. Pain became background noise. Determination became oxygen. By the time I graduated, I had something my parents never expected me to have: leverage. I started working for a healthcare consulting firm. Promotions came fast. Turns out, when you've been dismissed your whole life, you learn how to outwork everyone. By 32, I was running regional operations. That night when Mark called, his voice cracked. He said, "I messed up. Dad co-signed a business loan for me years ago. The company failed. He passed last year, and now the bank's coming after me." I felt my chest tighten. "How much?" I asked. $80,000, he whispered. "They're taking the house." The same parents who wouldn't spare $5,000 for my leg had left my brother drowning in their financial mess. I told Mark to meet me at the bank the next morning. The loan officer's tone changed the moment I handed over my business card. Meetings happened fast. Documents moved faster. By the end of the week, the debt was gone. Mark stared at me like I'd performed a miracle. "I didn't pay it," I said calmly. "I bought it. The loan, the lien, the leverage." A month later, Mom called me for the first time in years. "We're in trouble," she said, voice shaking. "The boat, the house, we need help." I invited her, my sister, and Mark to my office. Dad's boat photos were still on Mom's phone. My sister wore designer shoes. They sat across from me as strangers, suddenly polite. I slid a folder across the table. "I own the debt," I said, legally. Silence. My sister laughed nervously. "So you're going to help, right?" I looked straight at my mother. "You once told me a limp would teach me responsibility." I turned to my sister. "You said I'd manage." Then I faced Mark. My voice softened. "You gave me everything when you had nothing." I closed the folder. "Here's the deal," I said. "Mark keeps his home. His debt is erased. I'll fund his new business." Their faces lit up. Until I continued. You, I said to my mother and sister, get nothing. The house will be sold. The boat goes first. Mom's hands shook. You wouldn't. I stood up. I already did. The sale happened quietly. The boat, my father's pride, was gone within a week. The house followed. Mom moved into a small apartment. My sister suddenly discovered independence wasn't cute or easy. They told people I was cruel. I didn't correct them. Mark, on the other hand, thrived. I helped him start a small repair business, properly funded this time. He hired 3 employees in the first year. By the second, he had contracts lined up months in advance. One evening, we sat outside his new shop, watching the sun dip behind the buildings. You didn't have to do all this for me, he said. I smiled. You sold your future so I could keep mine. I just returned the favor, with interest. My leg still aches sometimes. Cold mornings remind me of what almost was. But I walk without a limp. Strong, steady. A year later, Mom asked to meet me for coffee. She looked older, smaller. I was wrong, she said quietly. I thought being hard would make you stronger. I took a sip of my drink. It did, just not the way you intended. She asked if we could be a family again. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I learned something important. Love isn't what people say when it's convenient. It's what they sacrifice when it costs them. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I paid for my coffee, not hers. As I walked out, I felt no anger, no triumph, just peace. Revenge wasn't taking everything from them. Revenge was building a life so strong I never needed them again. And the brother who sold his tools for $800? He didn't know what was coming. Neither did they.